This is Gemara in Kesubos, Daf Lamed Hey. We finished off yesterday in the bottom of Lamed Aleph and Beis with a fascinating discussion into the debate between Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish with regard to what creates the Patur, the exemption from money. Is it when there would be Hasra, when there is an actual act that one is Chayiv Misa, then he's Patur from payment, or no? Even if there is no Hasra, just in the Parsha, there's the potential for the Chayiv Misa and or Malkus, then that itself, that potential that's in that Parsha, would create an exemption from money. That's what we concluded on the bottom of Lamed Aleph Beis yesterday, that Reish Lakish and Rav Yochanan go according to their reasons, as you see highlighted in front of you, that Chayiv Malkus Shaygin, Chayiv Misa Shaygin. Rav Yochanan says you're Chayiv, Reish Lakish says you're Pater. Rav Yochanan says you're Chayiv. Why? There's no Hasra, says Rav Yochanan. If there was Hasra, then you'd be Chayiv Misa, then you'd be Chayiv Malkus, then you're Pater from money, you're exempt. But here there was no Hasra. If there's no Hasra, then you have to pay the cash. Reish Lakish perhaps is the Chiddush, says Reish Lakish that no, there still is that exemption because they're in that Parsha. So we continue in the Gemara on the last line, says the Gemara, Eisvei Reish Lakish Rav Yochanan. Again, Rav Yochanan held Chayiv, Reish Lakish held Pater. So Reish Lakish held Pater asks Rav Yochanan, he says, Rav Yochanan, you Rav Yochanan said you're Chayiv. You said the fact that you're within the Parsha, but you didn't get Hasra, therefore you're going to be Chayiv. But the Pasuk says, that if there's no fatality, then you're going to get punished. My love, asayin mamish. Does this not mean an actual fatality? As you look in Rashi, if the woman doesn't die, then he has to pay. What's the obvious implication? Speaks out Rashi in the top of the Amud. But if the woman would die, there'd be no payments. What do you mean? Even without Asra, the implication is there's no payment, even with regard if there was no Asra. The Kashal Rav Yochanan, a bomb question on Rav Yochanan. Answers Gemara, loy din asayin. What this refers to is the din of asayin. It's in the Parsha. It means the judgment, the death penalty. It means there actually was a death penalty. Not if there would have been, she would have died even without Asra. It means only if there was Asra. Another way of learning easier of Yochanan and Reish Lakish. My love din asayin loy asayin mamish. And that's the ending of this discussion. Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish. Amar Rava, says Rava, 1 second. Does it actually exist? Is there someone that holds that there's going to be a payment? You're going to have to pay a monetary payment if there is a simultaneous death penalty and monetary compensation. We equate the hitting of a man to the hitting of an animal. When an animal kills, there's no difference whether it was done on purpose or not, with kavanah or not, upward or downward regardless, there's always a chiyuv to pay. Lepatrai mamain, to exempt it from paying money. Elol chayvay mamain, you're always obligated. Af makadus, what's the equation? Whatever applies to animal, we now apply to makadam. Loitach, like we should also make a difference between b'shoyim ben meizim ben b'zav and the shin miskavein ben derech harida derech haliva lechayvay lemammon elol lepatrei b'mamain. So ask the Gemara, I don't understand. We see clearly in this brisa that any time there's a potential death penalty, there's no monetary payment. Once you're in the parsha, there's no monetary payment. So kasha on Rav Yochanan. How could Rav Yochanan say that you're not pater? We see clearly in this brisa that Maka Adam is like Maka Behema, just like Maka Behema is always chayiv. Maka Adam is always pater, and the patur of Maka Adam is irregardless whether there's an actual death penalty. Once you're in the parsha, there's the patur. So how could Rav Yochanan say not? Concludes the Gemara that you're right. The way we just explained Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish, which was Rav Dimi yesterday, is incorrect. We need to have a new way of learning it. Elikiyasa Rava comes along and he explains, Amar, if we have a case of chayve misais, if someone was Chayve misais b'shoigig. He killed someone inadvertently, not on purpose. Everyone agrees, like pligi de beturin, you're going to be potter. There's not going to be any payment. Meaning, even Rabbi Yochanan is masking whether the person actually is going to get executed or not is irrelevant. You did something that's within the parsha of a death penalty, even no hasra, even no actual death. The halacha is there's no monetary payment. Ki pligi, what's the machlekes? B'chayve malkos shoygigin. Till now, we were saying Misa and Malchus is one parsha, and we were just figuring out machlekes Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish, whether it's actuality or whether it's in theory. Now says the Gemara, no, it's a din by Chayve Misa, not necessarily Chayve Malchus v'davar acher and money. Rav Yochanan Chayve Misa diskish Chayve Malchus lo yiskish shaksham rapater befership zater Chayve Malchus Chayve Misa. Says Reish Lakish, it's the same thing. If you have an exemption of cash by death, you have an exemption of cash by Malchus. Why? Because the Torah put them together. Rav Yochanan says no. So I asked the Gemara, the obvious kasha, Echan Ribsa Torah. Reish Lakish, you said the Torah put the two Malchus and Misa together. Where do we know that? Amar Abaye Asya Rasha, Rasha Gzir Shava, Rasha, Rava Amar, Asya Maka. Omar le Rabba Rava. You Rava just told me we have Gzir Shava, Maka, teaching us that there's going to be an exemption by Misa and Malchus in the same regard. And again, what this means is if someone commits a crime that wouldn't be liable to the death penalty, a crime that would be liable to Malchus, whether the perpetrator actually gets the death penalty, actually gets Malchus, he will never have to pay the monetary compensation because it's within the same parsha. So says Rabba to Rava, you're equating Malchus to Misa. Hey, Maka, what's this Maka that you're equating? That's a din of katal of killing is linked to the Malchus. Elahai Maka. Maka nefesh ve'ini yishameno, nefesh tachas nefesh, v'samach levish kitin mumba, misa keshasik in yasalai. But says the Gemara, so that's what we think it is. But says Rav Papa had second, Vayla Maki. That has nothing to do with a Makkah. It doesn't use the word Umaka in the second pasuk. It says that there's going to be Malchus, but it doesn't say there's actually going to be, it doesn't use the same word. So what is the drasha of Rava in which he equates Malchus with Misa, the Makkah? What is the drasha of Rava? Answers the Gemara, Anan Amrina. Doesn't mean Makkah. It means within that same word, it means Haka, that's what it's referring to. Ask the Gemara, but says the Gemara, I don't understand, but this is referring to Chayvel Bechaveiroi. It's not referring to someone who gets a Malchus, it's referring to someone that hits his friend. And that he's not referring to with Malchus. And says the Gemara, excuse me, let me read that one more time properly. That pasuk of Hakah is talking about hitting your friend. What's the whole parsha? What's the whole discussion of today? What are we talking about? We're talking about something that doesn't have payment. We're talking about an equation between Malchus and Misa. Just like Misa within your parsha, you have exemption from payment, so do Malchus. Says the Gemara, so you're learning it from Chayvel? But by Chayvel you have to actually play. There's a Chiyav Tashlumim. Answers the Gemara, Mein Inyan Lahakash Ish B'Shava Bruta, Tnein Lahakash Ein B'Shava Bruta. Says Gemara, you're right. We're not talking about Chayvel where actually there's damages of value in which you have to actually pay him. We're talking about damages without value. That's going to be the case that there's going to be Malchus. That's going to be the case that we're equating Chayvel, we're equating Malchus to Misa, and that's going to be the limud of Rava that we're going to see that Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish, they're both going to agree when it comes to Misa, there's a Ptura Mammon. The question is Malchus, this is going to be the Raya to Malchus. Says the Gemara as we turn over to Amid Beis, I don't understand. But if it's Akasha Ein B'Shava Bruta, there's no Parsha of Tashlumim. We're using this as the source that whenever there's Malchus and payment, you're exempt from payment. But in this case, there's no payment because it's Ein B'Shava Bruta. Explains the Gemara, Leitzricha, Debahati Demach, Ge Karshirayin delay. Totally new case. As you're hitting him, you ripped a silk garment. So the Chiyuv, monetary payment, has nothing to do with the Chavala comes out. The monetary payment has to do with the other act of ripping silk that he did. And that's going to be the source for this Machlokes of Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Everyone agrees that by death and mammon there's an exemption for the money. The question is by malchus and money if that exemption applies. That is the machlekes Rabbi Yochanan versus Reish Lakish. Says the Gemara, 2 lines down, Lamed Hey Amid Beis. Let's go back to something that we said in Amid Aleph, the din of Chizkiah. Amar leir Rav Chia leRavo latana devei Chizkiah damar maka adam umaka behema. This is what we quoted in the Kasha in Amid Aleph. It said that we're equating the hitting of a man to the hitting of an animal. And we said that just like when an animal hits, there's always a monetary obligation, so too when a human hits, there's always a monetary exemption. But ask the Gemara, how do you know mimai de b'chol ksif? How do you know that we're referring to over there is when one who strikes an animal during the week, and therefore there's no differentiation between the kavana or no kavana. Dilma b'veleka lefluge, and there's no differentiation between kavana or not. Dilma b'shabbos ksif. Maybe it's talking about Shabbos. Why? Where in the case of the animal, there is a difference between kavana and not with regard to Shabbos. Explains the Gemara, don't think that it says in the Torah that one, if he hits the animal on Shabbos by accident, one who hits an animal, Yishalman, he has to pay. And if you kill a person, you're put to death. So we have 2 parts of a pasuk. You hit an animal, you're chayiv tashlumim. You kill a person, you're chayiv misa. What is the case that we're referring to? If there was no hasra, so the equation makes no sense. It says you hit a person, you get killed, but there's no hasra, you can't be chayiv misa. It must be that there's hasra, and that's the second half of the pasuk. That if you kill someone, you're chayiv misa. Says the I don't understand. But if it's going to be Shabbos, now Maka Behema Yishalmena. You're telling me that if you hit the animal on Shabbos, you have to pay? It can't be. Elalav v'chol. That's the raya. That it must be. That is during the week. That is where we're coming from to learn that this pasuk has to be during the week, and therefore there is no question on Tana Devei Chizkiah. Omar le Rababala Abaya. We're going to have a lot of wrapping up of loose ends. Now we're going even further back. We just wrapped up the Rav Chizkiah on Amar Aleph. Now we go back to yesterday's daf. L'Rabba Damar Chiddush Torah Bekenas Avagav Demiktal Mishalim. Rabba had a unique chiddush. Rabba said within the sheet of Rav Meir that it's a chiddush. Kenas is a novelty. And the novelty teaches us that even when someone kills, Avagav Demiktal, even though he is going to be killed, which normally, Kimle B'Diramine, the discussion the past few days, normally when there's an obligation of the death penalty, there's an exemption from money, says Rabba L'Dasar Ameir, when it comes to Kenas, it's different. When it comes to Kenas, you still have to pay the fine, even when there's going to be an execution, there's a death penalty. Explains the Gemara, Masnisay Kaman Mukinla. Who is this Shita? Ikara Meir, as I just said, Kashabitoi. That's not so poshik, because as we're going to see in tomorrow's daf, we're going to see that when it comes to, we had in the first Mishnah, all the different girls that one violates, that there is a Kenas. But in the next Mishnah, it's going to teach me the girls that there's no Kenas. And one of those is going to be Bitoi. There's going to be no Kenas if someone violates his daughter. Why not? Because you're Chayim Misa for violating your daughter. So what do we see? We see that it can't be Rameir. Because if there's going to be a real death penalty, there will be no Kenas. If it's a Chanya ben Akana, that we're learning about Malkus and Tashlumim, then Kasha Achaisai. Then the sister is Shver. Why? Because in our Mishnah back in the beginning of the Parak, it taught me that if someone violates his sister, there's no Malkus, there's only money. And Ikar Rav Yitzchak, Kasha Mamzeres. And if you're going to say we're going with Rav Yitzchak, who Rav Yitzchak was the opinion in Malkus and Marcus that said that whenever there is kares, there's no malchus, then mamzeres is going to be difficult. So says the Gemara, why? Because everyone agrees that there's going to, yes, be malchus by mamzeres. So nichas of like Rav Yochanan, unami medares like Rav Yochanan. He could hold like Rav Yochanan. At least have like Reish Lakish. Heche metaritzla. If you can hold like Reish Lakish, What are you going to say? Al karchach Rav Yochanan Sirlei. It must be we're going with the opinion of Rav Yochanan. Let's just see Rashi. Let Rashi speak this out. Rashi says, Rashi, we're in about 10 lines into the very wide lines. Rashi says, Hani Chisav Rabba Rav Yochanan. Back on Lamed Alam Beis, Kishloy Hasur Bodim Mishalim Chaviv Malchus Shoygim Dabracher Chayiv. Then when we have Malchus and money, this is what we started off with today, learning this Machlokes Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish. So we're going with Rav Yochanan. That when there's no Hasra, the Lachaz Yer Chayiv. So we can say the same thing, that there's no Hasra, we're going with Rav Yochanan. That's when there's going to be a monetary obligation. But if he holds like the opinion of Reish Lakish that there's going to be a Patur, so what are you going to say, even with Hasra? So the answer is the Gemara must be, he's holding like Rav Yochanan. And now we conclude that Amli Rav Masla Abayo, Rav Masna says to Abayo, the Reish Lakish Damar Beirshim Zatar Chayvim Malchus Chayvim Misos, as we saw in Amar Aleph, the Reish Lakish says, it's explicit, the Chayvim Malchus Chayvim Misos, Mantana the Bolig Rav Nochani ben Hakana, either Ameir, either Rav Yitzchak, either Ameir, Rav Yitzchak, that is going to be the math. And they're going to hold that even though this is a chi of kares, it's still not going to pot you from the monetary obligation. It's still going to be the monetary obligation according to Rav. That's Rav L'choni ben Hakana. So either we're going with Rameir or Rav Yitzchak, Rameir within the opinion of Malchus and Mammon, or Rav Yitzchak that kares and not Malchus. And we'll pick it up from the new sugya tomorrow in Mirza Hashem.